Hi everybody and welcome to my Unruly Housewife channel. It's day 23 of Vlogmas. Crazy. And today I thought I would tell you about what it was like when I lived in Brighton in southern England and I decided to become a stand-up comedian. I mean, I just turned 40, so that was my midlife crisis. And as it turned out, there was a course during Brighton Festival on becoming a stand-up comedian, so I signed up for it. We had a teacher, one of our teachers was called Tony Morwood, and I still know Tony now, and he was a proper solid professional comedian, and he said the most important thing to do is to know who you are when you walk out onto that stage, who you are, project yourself. Are you an angry young man? Are you a posh woman? Are you... No, because you can't just go up there and just go, oh hi, I just be myself. The audience haven't got time to figure out who you are. You've got to make it plain, and you've got to like have lots of jokes, bang bang bang, no waffle. So that's what we went out with, that knowledge. We went to a comedy club because it turned out most of us hadn't even been to see like live comedy in a smallish club, and we were told, introduced to the guy that ran it, and we were told, hey, you can sign up if you want to give it a try. Out of those 12 people, about 7 came to the comedy club, and the only person who signed up to do a gig was moi. So I turned up for the gig and he said, you're going on first. I'm really sorry. So I was like, no. And he said, I'll pay you. And so I went, oh great, because you know, for your first gig you'd be lucky to get paid. So I that was really good for me actually, because I was like, hey, I got paid for my first gig. I was all right, like I didn't suck too much. I played characters at first, and then I became sort of more myself, but I was a nurse, I was an old lady. Interesting, once I took all my old lady raincoat and scarf and everything off and went to the bar after a gig, and I hadn't done too badly. But a woman came up to me and she said, she saw all my stuff and she said, it's you were that old lady. And I said, yeah. And she said, there was a big debate on my table and I said you were a woman. So clearly some people thought I was a man in drag. I joined an improvisation group called the Dickwits, and that was kind of like, whose line is it anyway? So that's a scary thing to do. All this time I was doing gigs and it was like, one gig would be good, the next gig would be terrible, the next gig would be good, the next gig would be terrible. I don't know what happened like that for me, but it did. Because I got into the scene, I then got invited to write for a monthly comedy stage sketch show called The Treason Show. So I used to write for them, and because it was news based, like it would be up to the minute which sketches would go in, so you literally had to go to the gig to see if your sketch got in. Or like song parodies. Then I had my own comedy night that I used to host called the Prawn Cocktail Lounge, which I did with another comedian called Eric, and Eric was mad, a complete mental case. But what Eric used to do, he used to make posters for the gig with people on it, local acts on it, and he hadn't even asked them if they were going to do the gig. I was like, Eric! And he goes, oh, they'll probably do it. If not, we'll just say they're cancelled. I was like, oh my God. I'm going to tell you at the end about some of my worst gigs because it'll be funny. I went to America. I visited friends in Seattle, and I ended up doing a 5 minutes at the, what was it called? It's like an underground club in Seattle, where Seinfeld started out, and Ellen DeGeneres has been there as well, I think. But I did 5 minutes. I was okay. I thought they thought I was okay. The guy was like, you go on stage, do your stuff. When that red light comes on, you get off and we're not paying you, and you're going on first. I was like, all right. And I used to own who I was. I used to go straight out and try and talk to somebody quite early on in the audience so that they knew that I was prepared to talk to them, which made them less likely to want to talk to me, because I'd like make fun of them. One man was so thrilled that I talked to him that he phoned his mum in the break to said, "Oh, I've been talked to by a comedian during her act." I was okay, I think. People asked me to do gigs. And being the only woman on the bill was quite interesting because that often used to happen. And it was a good way to get gigs because people were more keen to get a woman because it's a bit rare to get a woman. So it looks good if you've got a woman in the lineup. Anyway, yeah, so some of the more interesting gigs that I did, or funny, bad gigs that I did. One was a jazz night. And it was jazz music, which is quite kind of laid back, isn't it? It's not very comedy, is it? And when it came to the break, they're playing jazz music, and then the guy went, "Oh, okay, we're going to have a break now. We're going off to the bar. And apparently during the break, there's going to be some comedy for you." So, yeah. And just went. And that was my big build-up to come out on stage. I mean, the audience worked up. Anyway, I came out on stage and I said, "Oh, well, I've never been introduced as break before. But who cares? It's a jazz night, so I can do any old." Oh dear. That was kind of okay, but people came up to me afterwards and said they felt sorry for me, which is not really the object. I did a singles night in the old market in Hove. So the woman said, "Can you come early before it so that we can have a chat?" I was like, "Sure." So I walked in and it's a singles night. So she said, "You can't make any jokes about your family or your marriage, your relationship, anything like that, because these people are single, so they don't want to hear about it. That's just going to upset them." So I was like, "Oh, okay." And yeah, she said, "Don't make any jokes about, your kids, dating." I mean, she just like, oh my goodness. So I was like, wow. I said, "Can I at least say that, remind them that the old market where it was used to be a cattle market?" She said, "No, you can't." So that was, oh dear. I did an art project which was standing on stage with a microphone on your own in a big room with just a camera on and just doing your act and telling jokes and talking until you can't do it anymore, until you break. It was this Irish art project, and I got paid £40 and I just did what they asked me to, and then at some point I just broke and started laughing. I just couldn't stop laughing. I couldn't speak. It was a bit like Vlogmas. It was like Vlogmas. There you go. One time in Hove again, I did this gig at a lesbian club, and there was a guy sitting at the front with a woman, and he was a bit older. They were together, but he was definitely quite a bit older than her. And I don't know what he thought was going to happen when he's sitting at the front in a lesbian club at comedy night. But of course, I made fun of him. He should have assumed that would happen. So I just made fun of him. I said, "Oh, I see you brought your dad with you," and stuff like that. And I just made some jokes at his expense. Not terrible things. And at the end, he came over to me, and I thought he was going to be like the guy who was happy about being mentioned. And he came up to me and he said, "I really pity you so much because something terrible must have happened to you in your childhood for you to want to stand on stage and humiliate yourself the way you did this evening." And I was just like, "Oh, okay." I had no comeback. Yeah, the last thing I'll mention is I did a gig at the Comedia in Brighton, and it went really well. Super funny. It was really enjoyable, and I didn't know, but my next door neighbours were in the audience, and at the end they came up, this guy Ian, he said to me, "Oh, Val, I've watched, we watched tonight, and you are actually a comedian. Like, every time you say it to me, I think I'm kind of imagining it in your head." He goes, "But that was really funny, you actually are a comedian." I was like, "Thank you very much." So I think I've gone on enough about that. But yeah, if you want to become a stand-up comedian, just do it. And when people say, "Oh, it's the hardest job in the world," or "It's the most frightening job in the world," oh, please, firemen, fire people, people do harder jobs than standing up and showing off and getting money, hoping people will laugh. When I say getting money, getting £5. Just before I leave, I'll tell you this. I got recognised once in the street. It was raining. I was walking along. This couple came the other way and the guy said, "Cheer up, Mrs. Comedy Woman." So that's my claim to fame. I hope you enjoyed that and I love you all.